howdy. Today, we are looking at Ember Prime. She just got her heirloom skin. It is July 20th as the time of recording this. TennoCon is happening right now, and we got this glorious heirloom skin with some quality assets, if I do say so myself. And this is the max investment Ember video. I actually have finished the build for this Ember a while ago. She's actually the first one that I did the max investment build for, but I didn't record a video on it yet because I wanted to wait until she got her heirloom skin. That way, it'd probably get more traction, so, more views. Also, then I could show her off with her glorious assets. Now, let's be honest, it's her ass. Just ass. Take out the ets, it's the ass. Now, first I've got to show off the skin, obviously. The people that made this at DE did such an incredible job. This is probably my favorite skin in the game, or look in general of any Warframe, like Warframe skin, helmet, anything. This just looks magnificent. And there's a few different things to it. I don't want to spend too much time on this since this is supposed to be a build video, but there's also the Signa that you get with it, sort of like a special halo. And in the sigils, you also get one for the heirloom, right? The fiery look to it, which is pretty snazzy, I'd say. So let us go ahead and start going over the build. Here it is, Ember, Queen of Flames. This is going to be pretty intense. I don't know why my freaking Sentinel Dragon's in the back. If you want to know what I've got going on for this build, or this look, it's mostly just like a few small things added to the Ember Deluxe, still with the base colors of the Ember Deluxe. So nothing too fancy going on here. And this is, oh man, this is quite spicy, I'd have to say. So we obviously are going to start with Ember. Now, first off, we are going to go over her build before the Archon Shards, because the Archon Shards are going to require some explaining with the Sentinel. So I have a few different builds here, but this is the main build right here, okay? Queen's Rage, I know, insanely cringe, but also incredible name. And this build is specifically for burning everything to death with Inferno. That is your main goal. We have subsumed over her 1 with Roar, because Roar is a damage buff to our abilities, and because it's a faction multiplier, it will double dip on our heat procs. Ember is significantly better off after all the changes we got in Jade Shadows as well, plus all the armor changes and stuff. She's just really freaking strong now. Her passive, as always, is incredibly strong. You get 5% ability strength for every enemy within 50 meters affected by heat status. This has no cap. So if you get to a spot where there's like 50 enemies on screen within 50 meters with heat on them, you can get 250% strength. That's kind of insane. We also have Molt Augmented for another 60% once it's built up, so this 174 actually ends up being way higher than it actually is. We have Arcane Energized to help with our energy economy, because even after the Jade Shadows changes, she is still very, very energy hungry. Equilibrium for even more energy. We have Brief Respite here and Catalyzing Shields so that we can easily get our shield gate back after casting an ability. We have Healing Flame, which gives us health back, as well as Overguard if our HP is full for every enemy we hit with Fire Blast. And this, combined with Brief Respite and Catalyzing Shields, means every time we cast our Fire Blast, which will preferably be when we're at max immolation, it will strip all of the enemy's armor and give us our shield gate back, and give us an Overguard, which has a gating mechanic to it as well. We have Umbral Intensify. I did test if Precision Intensify would be better, since it would all go into Inferno, but an Umbral Intensify, because it also affects Roar, is going to be a higher damage. Plus, it just means we get even higher Overguard from Fire Blast. We have Archon Vitality. Yes, I know it's not maxed out, but that's because it is completely irrelevant to maxing this out when you are in any sort of high-end content. Or even like mid-level content. Her armor is so low and she doesn't have high base HP, there's literally no reason to max out Archon Vitality. It's just a waste of space. There's no point. We have Stretch for a little bit extra range, which will mostly just be affecting our 3 and 4, but it's still nice to have. Prime Continuity for some extra duration. Prime Flow so we don't have like 0 energy cap. And Prime Sure-Footed is just For preference, this is in case my overguard breaks and then like my shield gate breaks or whatever, I don't want to risk getting knocked down, because you do get status immunity while you have overguard. But if my overguard breaks, I don't want to risk getting knocked down and dying. If you don't want Prime Surefooted because you don't have to have it, you can run literally anything else you want, like something for extra parkour velocity. Immobilize would work perfectly fine, or you could go for more strength with power drift, more range with cunning drift. It's completely up to you, but I think this is the best just for consistency and to make sure I don't die. And that is the general build of what we have going on. I'm going to assume you know how Ember works, at least on some base level. I mean, this is a max investment level build, but I guess I'll go ahead and explain somewhat to what she does. So I already explained her passive, right? Pretty straightforward. We got rid of her one for roar. Immolation, you cast it, it's always active, and it starts not draining any energy, but it builds up over time. The more you cast your 4 ability, the faster it builds up. Once it maxes out, it starts draining energy per second, starting at 4, even though it doesn't show it in stats here for whatever reason, and it increases by 0.4 per second. It has no cap, so try not to let that go for too long. You don't want to recast this, though, to end it and restart it, because Fire Blast resets it by 50% and reduces the buildup, okay? So you lose 2% buildup per second by casting Fire Blast, and Inferno increases buildup by 3% per second. It also gives 90% damage reduction when you're maxed out, or at least as long as you have some level of strength. Fire Blast, this is an ability that sends out a shockwave that will stagger enemies, knock them down, and strip their armor based off of how high your immolation meter is. And it also will be giving us health and overguard because of the augment that we have. The damage is worthless pretty much, so don't use it for that. It's literally just survivability and fully armor stripping. And because we want to full armor strip, try to only cast when you have it maxed out, the immolation, because that also affects the energy drain. If you have no immolation, it costs 75. If you're at max, 25. Big difference in energy cost. Finally is Inferno. Inferno costs no energy if you don't hit anything. It is 10 energy per target. It has a 67.5 angle of cone. It's like a cone going out in front of you, right? A big cone. It's not a 360-degree radius. Really wish it was. But it launches meteors down at the enemies that explode, and then it applies burn. It will also create a ring of fire around the enemy that will burn enemies and deal damage. And it's pretty nice when you group enemies up, because the ring of fire can then overlap on each other and have all of them hit at once. The damage also scales with immolation, so if you're at maxed out immolation, your damage is going to be double than if you had no immolation. That's pretty much it for the Ember mods part of the build. Now we have the Archon Shards. We have 2 Archon Shards for ability strength. This is just so that we can get more damage, of course, from our Inferno and Roar and stuff. It's just very nice to have. We have 1 for casting speed, because casting speed is a must-have. We will be getting more from Matarai, but even without Matarai, I feel like 1 Tau Forge for casting speed is enough. I don't think you need more than that. That being said, more could be nice, but it would be kind of a waste. Then we have 2 Tau Forged Topaz Shards for ability damage on enemies affected by radiation. I know this seems confusing because Ember does not apply radiation, but this is a multiplicative damage buff. So these two together, that's going to be a 30% damage buff to all of our damage from our abilities, including the heat procs, which is very nice. And how we will be applying radiation is going to be our Sentinel. So I'm going to go over the Sentinel before I do the weapons and the focus school then. Our Sentinel is Nautilus, because Nautilus is perfect here. Like I said earlier, when enemies are grouped up and the flame ring can overlap, the damage you do skyrockets. It's just absurd the amount of damage you can do. So we, of course, want to group them, which is why we have Nautilus with Cordon. We have calculated redirection with accelerated deflection to help keep it from dying. We have prime regen to get it up faster, assault mode so it targets stuff, vacuum to pick stuff up, guardian for extra survivability. Manifold bond is very important here, because that way we can obviously be able to spam Cordon. You have to kill enemies that have 3 or more unique status effects, which you'll see here in a sec is very easy to do. We have synth deconstruct, so every enemy tagged has a 25% chance to drop a health orb, which means more energy because we have equilibrium. Duplex bond is here to spawn in more of our little Nautilus guys. It can spawn up to 3 extra Nautiluses. They do not use any abilities or mods on the Sentinel itself, but it does use whatever weapon and mods are on the weapon that your Sentinel has. They are invincible, they cannot die, and they aggro enemies, so it gives some level of survivability as well. Then we have the weapon, Hellstrom, because Hellstrom is insane. It shoots missiles that are slightly heat-seeking and have explosions. This is where we'll be getting our stats effects from. This is a viral radiation primer build. We have multi-shot to obviously have more shots, lots of fire rate from speed trigger and viral acceleration, viral from rounds and malignant force, radiation from thermite rounds in vital or high voltage, and we have all 4 of these. I know there's a mod you can run for pure radiation. Where is it? Radiated reload, which also gives reload speed, but I would rather have the status chance than the reload speed here, which is why we're using these 2. Though I suppose you could run vigilante armaments with radiated reload instead, but it's entirely up to you. Prime Firestorm is here, so we get as big of an explosion as possible. I know it's 1 rank away from max. I just don't have the Endor credits, as you can see, in 4% on this. That's going to end up being like a 1/10 of a meter. It will not make a difference. That's completely irrelevant. But having it at least at like rank 8 or so is going to help with bigger explosions. Now, because this has such high, I know only it says 1.8 multi-shot, but it shoots 5 rockets every time it shoots. And they have heat-seeking, and they explode, and they have an absurdly high status chance. Which means we are going to easily apply multiple stacks of viral and radiation all over the place. And because we have duplex bond, so there's 3 extra of these guys, meaning we have 4 Nautiluses running around shooting that everywhere, and we're sucking them in with Cordon. That means we'll be able to proc viral, radiation, heat from our Ember. That's 3 unique statuses for Manifold Bond to spam Cordon more. And to get it back if it dies, I guess. That's also part of it. And then we have the radiation for our Tau Forge shards to give the bonus damage. And then we have viral on the enemy to give us even more damage. It's going to be very, very good. Extremely nice combination. Now for our focus school, we have Madrai because it's just nice in general. If you wanted to use the other stuff, we don't need Uneru because the poise isn't really needed. The armor strip isn't needed. We already have armor strip, so Uneru is pretty worthless. Zenerek is worthless because once we start draining energy per second when our immolation is maxed out, that means energy pulse and wellspring aren't going to work. And the Inner Mites giving 1 free ability cast every 60 seconds is worthless when we're spamming abilities. So Zenerek does nothing for us. We're not using our melee all the time, so Narimon's pretty worthless. And our survivability, in my experience, is perfectly fine, so Vazarin's not needed. That being said, if you want, you can run Vazarin. I would just go either Vazarin for survivability, more so than what you already have, or Madrai, because Madrai gives us, obviously, Slink Strength for more ability strength, and we also have the extra casting speed from it. Like I said earlier, it's not needed, but it can be nice. Void Strike is also kind of funny. You can cast it here and there if you need it. And in general, Madrai is really nice if you're doing something like Void Cascade because it just does so much damage on your operator to the thorax. Next, we have our weapons. First is the Kuva Brahma. I know this might seem a little wonky, but this is not going to be for killing general adds. This is going to be killing acolytes because our biggest problem with Ember is acolytes. We can't kill them very effectively. And Kuva Brahma is very strong for that because explosive weapons bypass damage attenuation. If you don't know what damage attenuation is and why it exists and how it exists and the very different variations of how it works from acolytes to liches and stuff, I recommend looking up a YouTuber named Azen Invasions. He did a video about a month ago, I think, as of the time recording, about it and like how the attenuation works and what weapons are good on that. So if you want to know that, go look up that video. But Kuva Brahma is very good for that. The problem is because we're not spamming it on ads, we can't keep our stacks up. But that doesn't become an issue with this build because the only thing we need stacks from kills with is Galvanized Chamber. And that doesn't take too many kills to build up and it lasts a very long time. We have Amalgam Serration for sprint speed and damage, Heavy Caliber for damage. The negative accuracy is actually kind of funny because it spreads around the explosions more. Vital Sense for crit damage, Critical Delay for crit chance, Speed Trigger to help balance out critical delay, also to give us a faster charge time in general. And then Infected Clip and Malignant Force for toxin damage. I know that seems strange, but we don't really need Viral. We already have that. Blast, we don't need more Blast. We're not going to get enough Blast procs for it to matter. Toxin is going to be nice because then we can use Primary Blight. And Primary Blight does not require kills to proc. So this, we just shoot stuff, Toxin applies, we build Primary Blight. Easy. And gives us crit damage and multi-shot. So that is going to make it much, much easier to kill stuff without having to get a bunch of kills prior to like shooting an Acolyte with it. Next we have Epitaph. Epitaph is the primer. Literally like an hour ago or less, they announced Sevagoth Prime on the Twitch, or like TennoCon stuff, so, you know, pretty soon you'll be able to get Epitaph Prime, but for now, Epitaph is what we have. This is going to be used for Heat Inherits. If you don't know how that works, I suggest looking up a video. I'm not going to explain it here. We have Amalgam Barrel Diffusion for multi-shot and giving us extra dodge speed to move around. Lethal Torrent for 5-rate multi-shot. Frostbite and Pistol Pestilence, just so we get more status chance and even more viral procs in case our Nautilus and its clones decide not to shoot the guy we want. We have Augur Seeker because it gives us a mini version of Brief Respite just to restore more shields on ability cast, as well as status duration so that its priming lasts longer. Then we have Prime Fulmination to have bigger explosions so that we have a massive, where is it? 11.52 meter range explosion. Very large. Then we have Scorch, gives us status chance in heat and prime heated charge so that we have as high of heat as possible to get the biggest possible heat inherit number. Now, you could run something like a, where is it? One of the faction mods, but I hate faction mods. I don't like using them. We already have Roar in the build, which is a faction multiplier, so it's not really needed. Lastly is the Arcane. This is completely up to you. I'm using Secondary Fortifier because this lets me do extra damage to Overguard. And I know that even though this build isn't built for damage, it's actually still going to do a decent amount of damage to enemies with Overguard. So having this just makes it easier to shred that. Pistol Ammo Mutation is also here so that we get some more ammo back. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention with Kuva Brahma, I obviously have Prime Pistol Ammo Mutation to get as much ammo back as possible on this. It would be better to have it maxed out, but actually I think because how it rounds up, I'm not sure maxing this out compared to rank 8 will even do anything for the Kuva Brahma. But, I mean, you know, you do you. Next, we have our melee weapon. Now, the melee is completely up to you. It is totally preference. You can run a stat stick, like Praetos, to get sprint speed and parkour velocity. You can run the Telos Boltus to pull enemies in while also getting parkour velocity, right? This lets you yoink enemies so they're grouped up to get more damage. This is what I was running previously. You can run a melee just for killing stuff. You can run melee influence to spread statuses. But what I'm using right now is a Harmony build. Here, let me switch this back, the skin, so it matches. Here we go. This is the Thanatos Scythe skin, by the way. We are using Harmony because the heavy attack will detonate all statuses, meaning if we apply a ton of heat procs on an enemy, but they're not dying fast enough to the heat procs, we can literally just one heavy attack and they are destroyed. They will just immediately be pulverized into nothingness. Then we have a typical build here for, or not typical, I guess. Actually, this isn't, definitely not typical. Condition Overload is just for extra damage for more statuses, melee elementalist, so we get more heavy attack wind-up speed, as well as status damage. Virulent Scourge and Vicious Frost are here so that we can get the, what is it called, viral, just for even more viral spreading, but it's totally unnecessary. Quickening is for attack speed and combo count. Prime Reach to hit more enemies, and Amalgam Organ Shatter to have extra crit damage. Sacrificial Seal, of course, for crit chance, which is doubled on heavy attack, meaning we have a guaranteed critical hit when we do a heavy attack. Discipline's Merit is actually supposed to be Dispatch Overdrive, because we're not building combo here. And actually, because of that, you know what might be better here, you know? Since we're using this just to detonate heat procs, you could actually switch to Melee Influence here instead, remove quickening, put this over here, and put on voltaic strike. And now we can use melee influence to spread the viral as well as heat procs, because it spreads whatever statuses are on the enemy. And we have higher status chance now. Very epic. And again, we're not building combo, we're just whacking shit. Dispatch Overdrive is going to make it so we can get tons of movement speed from doing so. Getting a heavy attack kill with the weapon also gives us 30% status duration to us and all of our teammates. This is not to the weapon, this is to the Warframe, the player in general, so their weapons and Warframe, meaning this will affect Ember and her heat procs and everything. Not that that will make that big of a difference, but still nice to have. Plus, it will also help with the priming, right, from our epitaph and stuff, and the toxin procs to last longer from Kuva Brahma, not that they're doing a lot of damage. That is the entire build here, except for the operator, which doesn't really matter. I'm just using whatever, use whatever weapon you want, especially like Void Cascade. I like the burst weapon, and I'm using the, Emergent Savior, so if my operator dies, I get resurrected, and that can happen once every 60 seconds. And other than that, I would either run Magus Lockdown to lock enemies in, or Magus Dissipate, or Emergence Dissipate, or whatever I think it's called, so that you can cancel your Void Dash and create motes of energy. That way, if you're running out of energy, you can just spam that, bam, you're back on energy. Completely fine. And all of this together makes for a pretty wacky amount of damage. So I want to show you comparing the damage with this, right? So we're going to switch back to this so I don't have to mess up my build. So first we'll go here. We're on the correct build. Oh yeah, and I'm going to explain these two builds at the end of the video, okay? These are very different builds. I'm not going to be showing them, but I am going to be explaining them after we show off some other stuff. So let's go back to here. We won't be shooting anything yet, but we will put on the epitaph. And then I'm going to switch to the harmony as well so I can show you how that works. Whoa, I don't know what's going on with my voice right now. We switch back to Matera in this build. Whoa, I got something in my throat or something. This will be first without the companion, okay? First, I just want to show it on its own. So, if I come over to these guys, we cast our immolation because we're always going to want this up. Let's spam our 4 real quick just so that we can build up our immolation as fast as possible. Now let's see how much damage it does on its own. Just this. You can see that it's pretty worthless. Like, you're not going to kill anything with this as it is. But that's why there's obviously a bunch of other things that are taken into account. So let's come back over here. Reset them. Now the next thing to make a difference will be armor stripping, okay? And it's also going to give us the extra strength. So we cast this. Now we have 100% strength from tagging 20 enemies, and they're fully armor stripped. And now we cast that. Still pretty horrible damage. Better damage, yes, but still kind of absolutely worthless, to say the least. But it just keeps getting more intense. So let's reset them again. Now, we want to cast Roar. That was the wrong ability. We cast Roar because it increases our damage while also double dipping on dots, so this is going to be an even bigger damage increase. Now we do this, and then we do that. You can already see that Roar made a pretty big difference in our damage. Like, we're doing a lot more damage now. And that was without having all the extra stuff cast on Roar, right? All the extra strength. So now we reset them. Get the energy back. I actually have to wait Roar out before its timer runs out. And then we'll be able to do it. So I want to be able to tag the enemies with this. So we're going to get the extra strength from here. Tag the enemies with that. Give it a second so our Roar. Get the extra strength from Roar. Cast this, and then do that. Now look at that. It's already way, way better. And we still haven't added in the rest of the damage. This is already getting pretty intense. We still don't have viral. We don't have the radiation. We don't have grouping. So, now we come back over here. Let's go ahead and add in Heat Inherits. This is going to completely decimate these enemies, okay? Heat Inherit is pretty ridiculous. Hang on, my roar's gonna run out, crap. But it's fine, I can just recast it so we get our Sling Strength back up. Give it a second so that we can then apply the heat procs. Like so. Cast Roar. Cast this. Armor strip them. They're dead. Heat Inherit makes a massive difference in our damage. But it's not necessary once we get the other things in. It's just an added bonus on the chunky targets. So, now we add in our pet, Nautilus, with Hellstrom, which adds the radiation from 30% more damage. Wait, this is the wrong weapon. And it adds in Viral, which will easily hit max stacks, meaning we get 325% more damage. It's going to go up a lot. And the grouping, which means all of the damage will overlap. So, now we simulate. I'm not even going to get the extra strength on Roar from the heat procs. I'm just going to do that for the Sling Strength. We're going to cast Roar. Cast this. We have to obviously build back up our Immolation again, which won't be an issue once you get it going in mission, but in the simulacrum it keeps resetting when I go into that one spot. They all get yeeted in. I armor strip them, and I do that. And they just get destroyed like it's a blender. Now, it unfortunately did not max out the viral procs. That was my fault. I forgot you have to have enemies not paused in the simulacrum, otherwise your dumbass companion is going to break most of the time. But there we go. Now it's maxed out easily. And they're all dying. Look at that. It's just like a blender of death. It's beautiful. And again, that was without the extra strength from the fire or the passive for our roar. That's already a lot of stuff going on, right? Now, if we were to go back to this build, right, the build I was showing you, everything's the same as I showed it was earlier. So what we're going to do, this is the damage is just going to be ridiculous. I am going to need to pause them again, so our companion won't work perfectly, but it is what it is. I need to be able to get our passive up without getting or having the enemy sucked in from Nautilus. There we go. Cast this. Cast this. Build up our immolation. Doody-dee-da-dee-doody-da. Now we go over here. Do this. It's going to yeet them all in. Do this. Armor strip. And then do that. And they're all dead. Oh, it's beautiful. And you know what? All of that is so easy to do because even without, let's say you didn't want to have to go through the effort of heat and hair, okay? Our Nautilus and its guys shooting stuff is completely passive. It does all the work on its own. Once we get heat procs going, we never have to like actively worry about our passive. It just happens on its own. Sling strength, we only have to do every now and then just for our roar. That's the main thing it matters on, which lasts nearly a minute. All you have to do is recast roar. You're literally just armor strip and getting your survivability, casting your 4. Armor strip, casting your 4. That's all you have to do. The rest of the build just does it all on its own with the exception of the heat inherit priming from our epitaph. Which again, I mean, does this look like it's difficult to do? All you gotta do is shoot a couple times. It has nearly 12 meters of range on the epitaph. It does a lot. And all of this that I just showed you, alright? And at the end, it was killing the enemies near instantly. That is from one cast of our 4. 1. Ember is an ability spam frame. You can cast your 4 as many times as you want. You can cast it like 5 times in a row, okay? I mean, I doubt an enemy will be alive after 5 casts or even up to 5. But if you need to, that's very much an option. Ember is absurdly strong. Just stupidly powerful. She does take a lot of investment to make do the damage, but she has an extremely high ceiling of damage. So, now that I've explained all of the stuff in the build and showed how everything works, we are now going to go into a mission so I can show it off. So we will set it to solo. And just like the other two max investment builds I did, just because it's the most convenient to show stuff off, we will be doing a solo netracell. This video is already pretty long. I'm hoping the netracell doesn't last too long so that the video doesn't go over an hour. That would really suck because the recording software on PlayStation doesn't let me record longer than an hour. So that would suck to record this and then literally have to restart it. That would be unbelievably depressing. The Kuva Brahma's not really going to do anything here because there's no acolytes in netracells, but it doesn't really matter. They're still going to get deleted regardless. Let's hope we got lucky with buffs. No, abilities inflict damage on you. That's literally the worst one we can get. Oh well, we got that with the Hydroid video and we still performed just fine. And we'll be able to heal because of our immolation, so I think we'll be absolutely fine. I'm just gonna speed run past all of these guys right here because I don't care about them. Now, most of the time your Nautilus isn't going to die, especially from range attacks. And the reason I have accelerated deflection and accelerated deflection so it recharges its shields faster, and also calculated redirection so it has bigger shields. The more shields is just for a bigger shield gate. And I have the faster shield recharge because I've found in my own experience at least that the best way to keep my Sentinel alive is usually with its shield gates. Because if I build for health and stuff, it's just going to end up getting one shot. It can still get really easily killed if you're directly on top of an enemy that has like a slam attack that will destroy you up front. Like if you're in a rogue necromech space, it's probably going to die. But because we have prime regen and some other stuff, I'm going to ignore that book for now, by the way. Because we have prime regen and other like manifold bond stuff to help it come back, it won't take too long to come back. And in the meantime, because you're still going to want like the viral, but it'll be dead, but you also need the unique stats procs to proc manifold bond to have it come back faster. If it dies, just spam epitaph on a few enemies and kill them, and you should be good after that. It shouldn't take much effort to get your Nautilus back. In my personal experience, I would say that most of the time you're going to be absolutely fine though. It's not going to die usually. But when it does, don't worry about it. Just use epitaph a couple times and you'll get it back. I've used this build a decent bit. I tested it thoroughly with a lot of different stuff. And so far, I have never once been downed with this build. I'm about to be downed right now though. Come on, let me find an enemy. Please, please, please. Son of a bitch. See, that's the problem when you get into this and, you know, something screws you over. I'm alive, though, because we have that. That's why I hate health drain mechanics. They're super annoying. I'm like, never been downed, instantly gets down. But it's not hard. Materite plus armor strip stuff everywhere because of our Fire Blast makes it really easy to get the kills to revive yourself with your operator, assuming you have that unlocked in your focus school. There we go. Now, of course, getting energy right off the bat is always going to be the main issue if you're running a lockdown instead of dissipate, which is what I'm doing right here. I really wish I would have been running dissipate, but it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it now. So I'm going to need to kill stuff. Like so. Whee! I don't know why it just kept randomly giving me one overguard over and over there. We just spam shits. Look at that. Now we're starting to get our energy and stuff up. Now we can use our abilities. And everything's just going to die. Now, like I said when I was showing this off, the gameplay loop, with the exception of when you decide to use heat inherit stuff, like priming, is mostly just going to be spamming your 4 as much as possible, and whenever you are, like, if your Overguard breaks, cast Fire Blast. Or, like, Overguard and Shield break, cast Fire Blast. New set of enemies that need Armor Stripped, cast Fire Blast. Fire Blast is like, whenever something's going wrong, cast Fire Blast. It is your friend. Always, always cast Fire Blast. Now, don't spam it too much, because if you just do it over and over and over, you won't be max immolation, meaning you won't maximize the amount of overguard gains you get, or get a full armor strip. So definitely don't just spam it over and over and over, like rapidly. But you are going to want to do it fairly often, in between spamming your 4 ability. We're already on to the first Netramite over here. Yay! So far, I haven't had any energy problems since I built the energy up. I don't think we should have any energy problems. It is starting to build up fairly fast right now, but as soon as I Fire Blast, it'll fix that problem, and we just have to get some more kills. So we, yay, spam this down, and here comes the energy from Equilibrium and stuff. It really, really helps that our Nautilus has Synth Deconstruct, and it can just hit stuff to apply the effect from it, and then we get all of the, you know, the health orbs, which means more energy orbs. Here's a Necromech. Necromechs do have damage attenuation, though Kuba Brahma, in my experience, does not work as well on them as it does on Acolytes. That being said, it still wasn't much of an issue. If you're doing Murmur content specifically, then I would suggest maybe switching from Brahma to something else for Rogue Necromechs, but that's entirely up to you. I am about to run out of energy. There we go. We got the health orbs and energy orbs we needed. That's why I'm running Equilibrium and Energize, because it's just really nice. If you're about to bottom out on energy and health orbs just aren't dropping, and it's like 1 or 2 energy orbs drop, and Energize gives you that like jump start and energy to get more kills real quick to get health orbs going, it's really nice. That's why I highly recommend having Energize and Equilibrium together. It just makes a very, very big difference. And you can see when we're getting enough kills, energy is not a problem. Here, I keep forgetting to recast Roar, because if you feel like your damage isn't as high as it should be, always make sure to check if you have Roar active, because Roar is going to be increasing your damage by more than double. If you have Sling Strength active, and your passive gave you enough strength to get like 100% of the, or 100% scaling from Roar, then Roar is going to increase your damage specifically from the heat procs by 4 times, literally 4x the damage. So it's very important to make sure you keep that going. I have forgotten to cast Sling Strength every time I've done the Roar, but it's not the end of the world. Because you can see stuff is dying. I've yet to come anywhere close to dying, with the exception of the health drain that happened earlier, just because I was running around. There was nothing to hit with my Fire Blast. This is very, very easy build to manage. Just run around, spam burning the world to death. And the other builds that I have that I'll be showing at the end of this video are not as effective as this build at all, but they're options that I think are worth considering, because they have some level of niche use to them, right? And with possible changes in the future, they could have more value, or depending on what your teammates run. But I guess I should stop talking about those when I can't even show you what they are. So you'll see the other builds at the end of this. Look at that. If there's an Overguard guy, you can also just spam your Epitaph if you also put on Fortifier like I did, because it will make destroying them much, much easier. Yay! I'm not really sure what else to really talk about with this build. Oh, I guess I haven't shown the hates at all, or not the hates, sorry, what is it, Harmony? These enemies die way too quick for me to really need to detonate the heat stacks. Like, pulling out Harmony right here isn't really going to do anything for me. But if you're doing, like, let's say a Disruption, okay? If you're doing a Disruption and you, like, armor strip the dude and you put a bunch of heat procs from your 4 on, then you can just use your hate and it will detonate all of them and kill the guy pretty much immediately. And that's one more enemy? Yep, there we go, that's it. Easiest netracell of my life. I mean, netracells aren't particularly difficult in general. but I know there are some people that struggle to like solo a netracell. We got some of the worst buffs, like the one where you lose HP when casting an ability on any ability spamming frame is the worst buff to get, and we still had no issues whatsoever soloing this with very, very little effort. I don't know why I even bothered grabbing that. I already got the loot from this week. I don't even need to do it again, but you know. Although I guess I think you need to break it for extraction to show up. I freaking love Ember. She is extremely underrated for how easy she is to play. Although I suppose, in all fairness, she's much better now after Jade Shadows, and Jade Shadows hasn't been out that long. People are still pretty focused on Jade being insane and trying out all the different stuff with Blast and armor and health changes in general. But I think with Tennokan coming out and the heirloom skin for Ember, after having gotten the changes with Jade Shadows, a lot more people should start seeing how powerful Ember really is, because she's just glorious, magnificent even. So we are going to, real quick, before I end the video, I want to show off the other two builds. One of them I don't need to be in anywhere to show it off, but the other one I do, which will be why we're going back to the simulacrum right now. So, to the simulacrum we go! Oh, whoa! We're at 975 subscribers as I'm recording this. So freaking close to being at 1,000 and getting monetized. Oh my god. If you guys like this video or you like Ember or anything, please share this video anywhere, Reddit, Discord, just share it to whoever you can. That would be such a power play. It doesn't take much effort. If you don't, I don't care. I mean, you know what? You do you. I'm not going to be mad. But if you feel like helping a bro out, that would be very poggers, as the kids would say. So the other two builds, actually, hang on a second. I want to switch here so I don't have my companion in the way without having to mess up my build, so we'll do this. The other two builds are, one is for Fireball, specifically with Fireball Frenzy, and the other one is for getting rid of your 4. I know that seems strange. So first I'll quickly explain this build. We'll do that so the stats like reset on the side and annoys me. This is very similar to this build here. You can see like the only difference is we've replaced Catalyzing Shields with Fireball Frenzy and Brief Respite with Growing Power. Other than that, everything else is the same as far as mods go, except there's no Helminth ability, just Fireball. Now, the reason for this, and the reason I wanted to make this build was, dang, I can't remember the guy's name. I'm so sorry. I have a horrible memory, but a guy did an Ember video explaining stuff about Ember that really has a lot of good information. He's a small YouTuber with like 50 subscribers, I think. I will leave a link to his video in the description of this video, so please go check it out. He did a great explanation of a lot of the mechanics on Ember, so I definitely recommend watching that. But something I disagreed sort of on was him saying that the first ability was useless even with the augment, and that you shouldn't use it. I do think Ember as a weapons platform is not really useful, because I know a lot of people run Ember as that. In my personal opinion, that is pointless. There are way better weapons platforms. Just run one of them. There's no point in using an Ember as a weapons platform when there's significantly better options, and Ember brings pretty much nothing unique to the table. With one exception. That is the fact that Fireball Frenzy is heat damage. And heat damage works with heat inherits, which means using this, we can get more heat damage to apply to our weapon to give more heat inherit priming to get even more damage from our 4. The problem with this currently is that Roar is going to give more damage, okay? And obviously we can't get rid of Fire Blast for Roar because we need the armor strip and the survivability. We can't get rid of Immolation because that will give us the full armor strip from Fire Blast and the full damage from Inferno. We can't get rid of Inferno because that's where our damage comes from. So that's the problem right now. Though this is circumvented by playing in a team and having a Rhino on your team with high strength and him just running Roar, because at that point with a high enough percentage on Roar, then Roar on yourself would just be diminishing returns and Fireball Frenzy would be more damage for yourself instead. So this works in a team if you're playing with a Rhino with Roar that's at a high value. But because of that, we have Molt Augmented, right? And we would still run Sling Strength, so that comes out to 100% more strength. Let's say on average you hit at least 10 enemies, that's 150% here. we would be at over 300% strength, which means we'd be getting over 300% heat from our Fireball Frenzy. That will be more than doubling what we can already get from heat inherence on a secondary with like a Riven on Epitaph even. It would be more than double that. So that's a lot of extra damage. Plus, if we're using a weapon in general, like a primary weapon, let's say we're using a weapon for heat damage, like a pure heat Ignis, it's going to give us significantly higher upfront damage and DOT damage on the weapon as well. So I think this does have value. It might be better in the future. Let's say faction damage got nerfed so that it doesn't double dip on DOTs. This would be better than Roar. But until then, this is only a real option in a team scenario. Then the other build I have here is exactly the same as the first, or this build, right, with the Fireball Frenzy. And it works exactly the same as Fireball Frenzy, or as the Let It All Burn build, right? Everything is the same except there's a helminth now. And the reason there's a helminth here is this is for if you don't want to do damage with Inferno. Let's say you just want to apply a bunch of heat procs with Fireball itself or your weapon. We have Sickening Pulse, which will then emit a pulse that will double all of the existing procs if it's Slash Heat or Toxin, or just add 10 if it's not one of those three. Which means we can apply a bunch of heat procs, cast Sickening Pulse, and it will double. Again, Roar would be better here, but if you have a teammate with Roar, this is going to be better because then you can just detonate all of the heat procs everywhere. And the reason I want to show this off now is, like, let's say we have this build. I don't know why I have Hunter Munitions here. Let's remove that. Let's say we have this build right here. And we don't have a lot of heat other than thermite rounds, of course. But we're going to get tons of heat from Fireball Frenzy. So that will make it so we get some pretty big PP damage. Let's go here. Simulate the enemies. I'm not going to get our passive going first, right? Well, you know what? Fine. I guess I can get our passive going. Just, like, show it off. See how much damage it can do without Roar. Show that it actually has some value. So we'll do that. And then we'll do this. Then we cast Fireball Frenzy. I'm going to run back over here. Look at that. 339% heat. Now we simulate again. Cast Emulation, even though it doesn't really matter. Now all we have to do is armor strip them once. Apply some heat procs all over so that they have plenty of heat on them. This would be much better if I had a better build in general, right? But I don't, so, you know, it is. Oh, wait, I know what I already... Ah, shit, I already screwed it up. Whoops. The first heat proc is the one that applies the heat inherent. So me armor stripping right off the bat already messed it up. Hang on, I have to reset it now. There we go. Wait, 213? What? Oh, because the fire all ran out. Whoops. Here, let's try to get this as fast as we can. Good enough, good enough. Okay, yeah, 319, only slightly higher than what it would be at max. There we go. Let's try this again, because I royally screwed it up a second ago. Now, we apply all of the heat here, right? And the heat inherits on, or is happening because of that. Then we armor strip twice in Sickening Pulse. And they all die. Or at least all of the enemies that had a decent amount of heat procs on them do. And you can't just put Sickening Pulse on multiple times. It does have a cooldown. But you can see that was without Roar. That was without Viral. That was without the Radiation. Though Radiation wouldn't do anything here because that wasn't ability damage. That is a very effective strategy. And it also provides more for your team, okay? Right? Like, the first build is better, yes. But this, not only... It works in a team, right? You have to be in a team for it to really be effective. But it also provides more for your team because Fireball Frenzy gives the heat damage to your team. Sickening Pulse detonates or duplicates all of the heat procs of all of the enemies, not just the ones you're hitting or applying statuses to, but also your teammates. So this just gives much more for your team as a whole than if you were to run something else. That's why I put this. I suppose Sickening Pulse would probably be better over Immolation. I don't know. But this is just like a sort of theoretical build. But that's going to be it for the video. That is Ember. in all of her greatness and her beautiful, beautiful assets from her heirloom skin. Holy shit, she is thick as hell. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe, share the video, and adios.